Hey guys, it's Aryan Kadri here, and welcome to the Do New Talks, where we host people from the startup world, be it entrepreneurs, mentors, influencers, accelerators, and investors, and we discuss with them their journey as well as the challenges that they faced. Today, we have with us Mr. Avishek Kedia, who is an entrepreneur as well as a startup mentor himself. Avishek, sir, firstly, a pleasure having you over here.
Thanks for inviting me to the show, Alan.
Thanks a lot, sir. So directly getting on to firstly letting our viewers know more about yourself. So
hmm
I'm pretty sure that you are involved in a lot many ventures, but how would you like to describe what you do and that as of now? Yeah.
Yes, so I would say I'm more of a general purpose entrepreneur today, and that has happened over the last 1 decade. So I started off early on when I was 16 or 17 with my first foray into digital marketing and SEO and building websites and writing content. And we've kind of taken it from there and really built and scaled startups to where one startup called GitStart, which I had co-founded about 3 years ago, is now Y Combinator funded, and they're doing pretty well. And I'm working with a few other startups. So I like to think of myself more as a entrepreneur with a special focus on digital growth and all kinds of digital strategies, more on the sales and the marketing and the operational side in terms of improving organizational productivity, leveraging digital strategies to improve revenue, improve the way, especially with remote work now coming into the fore and digital becoming more and more mainstream. How do we integrate some of those technologies back into our businesses to improve productivity and just make business more resilient? Because another thing to keep in mind is that most startups, 90 to 95% fail, as you would already know, within the first 3 years. So survivability is crucial, and in order to survive you need to be able to scale robustly over time, match the demand and the supply both. So nowadays, I look at myself more as mentoring startups, working with a few select startups closely, and just as a general entrepreneur working with digital and tech.
That's pretty interesting. And one thing that basically glued for me was that you started off as an entrepreneur at a very young age, that is, I guess, 16 or 17. And
Right.
that's something that is very unique in our Indian sense. And gradually, I'm noticing that gradually the starting of up age is gradually decreasing in India. And in the same, so as a 16-year-old, how did the idea of starting up a business came? Like, did you like this came to know like a problem and you just wanted to solve it, or else like you read some literature, or what was the inspiration?
I think at that time, the inspiration was more about trying to make a side income for myself while I'm still in school so I can get some pocket expenses. And at that time, I used to dabble around in a lot of forums like Black Hat World, Black Hat Team, Internet Marketing Forums, Warrior Forum. These are forums where there's a lot of exchanges that happen. They have an internal marketplace. So spending time on these forums just made me think that, hey, why can't I build my own website and then start putting up a blog there and directing some traffic? And eventually, what ended up happening is that I built a website in a span of about 3 to 4 months, which was around the theme of fitness. So, working out, losing weight, building abs, and then having built that, after again another 6 months of generating some traffic, I sold the website for $1,000, $999 to be precise. And that was like a big sale at that time. You're just 17, and $1,000 a lot of money. So I realized that okay, there's definitely a market there. People want more SEO to be done. They want more traffic to their properties. So maybe let me start up a small service where I create articles for other people, write content, and do some SEO, and kind of started that way. So it was a little bit of curiosity mixed with a little bit of personal motivation. And at that time, when you're 17, you have a lot of energy as well, all the time. So you just keep doing it, and yeah, one thing leads to another.
That's a very humble way of putting it, because yeah, I'm pretty sure that most 17-year-olds probably would haven't like probably as far as I know, haven't considered entrepreneurship yet. So in the same context, like how as in we would also like to know more about you, as in like what was your educational background, and did it actually help in starting up? I mean,
Yeah.
like
So
the schooling life, what stream did you took, and so on here.
yeah. I mostly studied computers and science, and then I went to Hong Kong University of Science and Technology for a 4-year program in computer engineering because I love working with, like I said before, digital tech, computers. That seems to be the future. Electronics. So there I studied a bit of electronics, software, hardware, did a little bit of programming and coding in Java, C, C++. And it was, in fact, in university that in my 4th year of university, there was a program where they allowed teams to come in and pitch an idea and then take that idea all the way to market. So there used to be a annual competition called the HKUST $1 million entrepreneurship competition, where the winner would get free office space and they would get some grant money. So a bunch of us in the final year, one Ecuadorian, one Chinese guy, one local Hong Kong person, and myself, an Indian. So really multinational team. 4 of us combined together to form a team, and then we kind of wrote a nice little executive brief, and submitted it, and we eventually ended up winning the competition. And the idea was not too complex. The idea was basically that we would build a vest, something like an Amul or a jockey vest that you wear underneath your clothes. And the vest would have some sensors in it. And the sensors would basically take your ECG data and give it to you on a mobile phone. It will get transmitted via Bluetooth. So a doctor, and from there, it can sync to the cloud. So a doctor sitting in the US or sitting remotely would be able to monitor what's happening with your heart, would be able to have a look at your ECG. So this was designed more for a target market of older people, people who are more at risk for heart disease and cardiovascular disease. And as you know, heart disease and cardiovascular issues are in fact the number one cause of death worldwide. So we had a little bit of a social mission and a story that we put out in there as well. And that was the first instance, this was in the final year of college again, where I learned how to craft a pitch deck, learned how to pitch to investors, ask for money shamelessly, and won some competitions which gave some confidence. So that's kind of where the more formal and serious startup journey started.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. And one part that stood out to me was that you try to link the general aspect with the social aspect, basically, and especially with the idea of targeting in context to the health sector, which is quite a
Yeah,
unique thing, because like linking that to the as a I guess as a computer engineer, basically linking that to the health sector, that's pretty interesting per
yeah,
se. Kim.
yeah.
So my next question to you would be that you also mentioned that you were you equally are as of now into digital marketing. You're also a consultant in terms of organizational capability also. So
Yeah.
from a person who was involved in entrepreneurship, but along with that, just a person who was just a computer engineer, how did you uh, became a person who gradually got involved in the business organizational structure and the marketing part of the entrepreneurship?
I would say somewhere in college, I spent a lot of time studying philosophy and psychology and linguistics. And naturally, you tend to want to apply that knowledge somewhere. So, marketing essentially is applied psychology, right? You try to understand the market and try to tailor a particular message to them, and how people perceive a brand and improve the brand's value over time, some of the more intangible things. So coming from a computer engineering background, I slowly moved to linguistics and psychology over time, and then when I felt like I had to apply it, I had to apply it in the business world. So straight out of college, I did work as an IT engineer at Seat Tires for 1.5 years. And that was also a very, very valuable experience because working a standard corporate 9 to 5 job also gives you a spectrum of the other side of the fence, which is that, okay, here's kind of the high paced, cutthroat startup culture where every day you are working, you can rarely take a day off. And here's the Monday to Friday 9 to 5 where a bus comes and takes you to office. So I did that for about 1.5 years as well, where I worked within a manufacturing plant. I was building a smart plant in Nagpur. And so that experience has also given me a lot of insight into how organizations work, especially how organizations work at scale, and what the whole workflows are like, approval workflows are like, what and also building some kind of resilience, building that attitude where, for example, something very simple like following up. You need to follow up on everything. You need to follow up with your own team. You need to follow up with, on the sales side. You need to follow up with external vendors and collaborators all the time when you're trying to make things happen. So uh, it's been interesting mixing all of these fields together, like moving from keeping that strong base of computer engineering and technology intact, but then applying some marketing to it, applying some stuff learned from manufacturing industry as well. And today I have a company called Airful, which is about 1.5 years old. So that takes up primarily most of my time. That is a sort of a boutique consulting firm where we work with early stage and mid market startups. We work with companies in Holland, in California, in Hong Kong, and also locally here in Bangalore, where I am based. And we help them on a range of things. We help them out with business automation, productivity, sales, marketing, revenue improvements. And I'm leaning on some of my experiences garnered across the board. So the startup that I mentioned to you, that I founded in Hong Kong in my final year of college, that eventually failed. And the short story behind that failure is also that we ran into some patent and copyright issues with another Chinese company who threatened to sue us, saying that they had a similar product on the market. And to be very honest, we were so young and we were already doing academics and trying to run something on the side, that we had not done enough due diligence to know that, okay, you got to look into the patents as well, because this is a health product and health products have to go through FDA and US FDA approvals. So eventually failed, and but we did end up getting a lot of experience and making some money as founders, and then kind of went back to the drawing board. I came back to India, and it's then when I said, okay, let me take a full-time job at a good company, get some more experience, and then try to launch again. And that's what I did with Gitstart.
That's pretty interesting, and I specifically liked your approach that like you took the failing of that startup as a positive rather than a negative, and I guess that
You have
yeah,
to take it as positive.
as in maybe like a learning, or say I would frame it in that way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I guess that I was reading some Silicon Valley journals from angel investors, and they often said that when a startup entrepreneur comes and they mention that we already have like 3 or 4 already startups that have failed previously, but they technically, those angel investors actually count that as a positive, and they know that this person has been through this journey. The person knows that where all the mistakes happen. For example, in this case, I guess in terms of, let's say, corporate exemptions or the FDA norms that you got to know later
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
And in the same structure, for example, like I'm pretty sure that when a startup starts, so it is more of the product centric and the idea centric, and often
Mm-hmm.
the thing is that it's all you're putting it into the startup ecosystem, it is also about the legalities of it, the law aspect of it, the corporate exemptions, other norms. specifically Indian specific norms also, like maybe like
Yeah.
a startup India or something like that, how can it help you, etc., etc. So how did you made yourself well versed in those kind of knowledge? Because I guess that from the school time, I guess you weren't much into commerce, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, so that is still a weakness of mine, which is I have a little bit of irreverence for all things legal and compliance and auditory and all of the legal mumbo jumbo. So I much prefer to have somebody who's a legal or an accounting or financial expert handling those sides of the things. And I can spend more time on the product side, on the customer side, internal operations. So yeah, that goes back to the point about making a strong team, especially when you are building something from scratch. You need to have a few important skill sets within the team. You need to have somebody who is really good on the sales and marketing side. You need to have one person on the product and design side. And if you'd heard Andreessen Horowitz founders, Mark Andreessen's quote recently, read it on Twitter. He said, the last decade was the decade of code. This decade, that's 2020 to 2030, is going to be the decade of design, where good design is what is going to make your product or your business stand out. And design is starting to become a differentiator, the UI UX aspect of everything. So building a strong team is essential. And as as you scale up and as you work in multiple industries and across multiple ventures and products, you also start to realize that you have to delegate and outsource and hold other people accountable. So today I like to deal more in the why and the what segment, which is why am I doing what I'm doing and what am I exactly doing, and then oftentimes leave the how to be figured out by a trustworthy source or somebody in the team, where they can figure out exactly the pieces on how are the low level details going to work out. And this is especially true for some of the things that you said, the legal, financial, the nitty gritties.
That's pretty interesting, and one and I guess that that's pretty true again. That I guess that of course, as an entrepreneur, we always try, like, it's always about trying to save money and the other things. But when, as you mentioned, that always having the expert help rather than us doing everything, I guess that's always
Yeah.
a smarter option in the same field, because you will be that dedicated towards what you are best at, and
you
that.
you have to you have to start out with that, Aryan. I would say that you have to start out being a jack of all trades and master of none. An entrepreneur or a startup founder really is that. They have to know how to do everything across the board, because initially it will just be them along with maybe one or two other people. So they have to know how to do sales, how to do marketing, how to write good content, how to create a deck, how to hire people, how to screen and take good interviews. What are the various sources of supply of talent. They have to know a little bit of stuff on Canva, perhaps, how to make some posters. So it's only as you grow, then you start kind of trying to buy back some of your time by hiring other people to do some of the things that originally you were doing, because now you have that luxury. So there's never there's there's always so many skills that can be acquired. Yeah, it's infinite.
That's
We
pretty.
have to pick and choose your battles, as they say.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, like, being a jack of all trades is something that we can do at the start. But when we are scaling up and there are so many employees to deal with, and of course, gradually we have to start delegating the work to the others, especially the work that we know is replaceable in terms of other people. And in the same context, getting more to the what you do side of it. You're very much involved in in the field that gradually is taking off in the startup culture, in a huge with a huge boom, that is data sciences as well as general cloud management, so those things. So my question here would be that what would you say is the future of these things, because gradually the world is shifting to blockchain, cryptocurrencies are coming in, customization, engagement increasing in terms of marketing, so all that is booming. So what do you say is the future of like let's something that will boom in the next 10 years or is currently booming?
And definitely, the trend shows that AI is going to be a big component within both the professional workplace setting and also in our homes. The homes are going to be more smart homes where you can control your lighting, you can control everything in your house by voice commands. And if you even look at devices like HoloLens, Microsoft HoloLens 2, which gives you a projection which you can then interact with, that has a lot of applications for learning, right? Learning about human anatomy and learning about different kinds of objects, places. And so virtual reality, augmented reality, along with AI. Blockchain, there are still some regulations around crypto that need to be overcome, but the concept itself is extremely solid. So blockchain will, in fact, Estonia has already done a digital ID program where they put a lot of their government services on the blockchain. So blockchain is again an exponentially growing technology. So will be at least over the next 10 years, 3D printing and additive manufacturing, where we will exponentially reduce the cost of creating things. So today we build a house and it takes a lot of manual laborers to do the brickwork and the masonry and everything. I envision a future where in 10 years time you'd be able to build a house in a week. You need to feed in a particular design, you need to feed in some material into the 3D printer, some kind of reinforced concrete, and boom, it'll just print you in layers a brand new house. And they've done some trial runs of this in places like Dubai. So alongside that, we're also looking at the health sector, because AI has a lot of application in the health sector as well, especially in the light of Corona. How can we improve people's health and allow them to take more preventive measures rather than them having to go to the hospital and then take a lot of pills? So you have things like CRISPR, gene editing, a lot of work that's happening in synthetic biology and nanorobots, where they can put a robot inside you and that will be able to photograph and image your whole body rather than putting in pipes or other kinds of things. So these are some of the technologies. And of course, the other one that you mentioned, cloud computing, is that people are no longer worrying about managing on-premise hardware. So you keep big data centers in there and then cool those data centers, pay for electricity costs, manage them with services like Amazon's AWS, Google Cloud, and Microsoft Azure. You have these incredibly elastic and scalable cloud services where you can be up and running and create an app and have it hosted within a few days and let them take care of the management. So what's happening is that we're abstracting away more and more of the bottom layers. We're abstract and working more the software layer. I also see that within the professional setting, remote work is going to be the new norm. At least those kinds of work that can be performed remotely. There are some that still require face-to-face interaction, like a dentist, perhaps. So you would have entire companies that would be pretty much built and be running on the cloud. So they would be using, especially for entrepreneurs and early stage startup founders, early stage startup creators, tools like Coda, Airtable, Trello, InVision, GitHub, everywhere, where all your content, your entire business intelligence and infrastructure is pretty much on the cloud and it is on these tools. You don't have local files on your machine. You're not opening a Microsoft Excel or a Word there and saving it as a doc file and opening it again and editing it. It's all real time collaboration in the cloud. All your data is in the cloud. Even if today you lose your laptop, you lose your device, you as a CEO or an entrepreneur, you can go to anywhere, fire up a new device and log into your Google account and boom, you logged into all of the services and able to resume your business operations like instantaneously. So it's going to be a much more fluid world.
Hmm. That's a great approach. And in the last, I guess, in the last 3-4 minutes, like in a very condensed way, you have covered so many topics that are gonna surely boom, and I'm pretty sure that our viewers have much gotten many insights with the same. I know, I do know that we have a a time limit, and henceforth we would be quickly wrapping up. So any end notes, any one, if you just would like to say one sentence for our viewers, anything that you have learned or any other message.
I would say go and read Robert Greene's The Laws of Human Nature.
Robert Greene's Laws of Human Nature. I also haven't
Go
read
and
it,
read,
but I'm surely going to put it in my list. Yeah.
go and read anything by Robert Greene in general, and that will make you a stronger human being and a better entrepreneur.
Absolutely. And personally, also as a person who's very much into philosophy, as in like right from like Carl Jung to Adam Smith, Jeremy Bentham, Immanuel Kant, and many more people. So I would love to have a conversation in context of that also later on. But given that we have a time constraint, I guess that this we would conclude this particular session. But we would love to have you in more coming sessions for all the startup entrepreneurs out there, as well as people who are planning to start up. There's this book called The Ease of Doing Business, a compilation of corporate compliances as well as exemptions, especially for startups. And the link to the book is mentioned in the description box below. And in fact, Mr. Avishek Kedia sir is also featured in the footnotes of the book. And along with that, of course, for more such exciting videos, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Do New Talks. Thank you.